Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Frenzied clapping from Ed Campbell.
Frenzied Ed Campbell.
Frenzied Campbell.
Yes. Friends Ed Campbell.
It's not a million... I feel like it could be a Scottish name.
Holy shit.
You okay?
Yeah, sorry. Excuse me, guys.
Some water?
I'm going to fight through it.
Maybe have some water
No.
before we commence the podcast.
No. I'll keep a lid on this. Don't worry.
Frenzied Campbell feels like... It's not far away from like Menzies Campbell, is it?
It'd be pronounced Fringus.
What?
Menzies is Mingus.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Fringus Campbell.
That's why Ming Campbell's Ming Campbell.
Fringus Campbell.
Fringus Campbell.
Does that apply for like time of the month? Like, are you on your... How did you say it? Ming.
Ming? Are you on your Ming?
Don't ask me that.
What does that have to do with anything? Because it sounds like Ming.
Menzies, no? No, not because it sounds like minge. What the fuck?
As if what I said is less rational than whatever you were saying. What are you talking about?
Menzies is that's a slang for time of the month, isn't it? Don't know why I'm looking at Laura.
The only other woman in the room. On your menses?
I'm sure.
Like your menstrual cycle? Like...
But it is a thing, is it?
As in you're menstruating?
There we go. He's really about men's mental health back there. Women's mental health. He's overtaken you in your quest to be the spokesperson for women. Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
I haven't heard that before.
Yeah.
Like platty jubes?
Huh?
Is it the same? Is it in the same spirit saying like you're menstruating? You're mensying? Is that what I'm actually being earnest.
You tell me. They've used it in a sentence. Oh, don't mind her. I think she's on her platty jubes today.
Good grief.
Also can be a bird cage with a hole in the bottom, preferably rusty.
What?
Right. Bit of housekeeping. We're going to return to the subject of men's mental health later this week. We're going to do a second episode on male loneliness because we got so many contributions from the audience. But in the interest...
Get your criticisms in early.
If you want to preempt that episode, by all means, please do. But because there's so much happening in the news, Brexit, tariffs, Gen Z, they're always about, aren't they? Mm-hmm. So we're gonna stick to
Men's Ed. You're on your menzies. It's a callback from 2 minutes ago.
No, I was just figuring out if that would be like a Gen Z joke or a period joke. I couldn't.
It's kind of both.
Yeah,
that was the beauty of it.
That was the artistry of it.
Absolutely.
Who's your favourite woman?
Ava Santina.
Me?
Yeah.
Both
Yeah,
of you said
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Really? That's really nice.
But I've got like a goldfish thing. Is the last woman I see.
No, it's
I forget all other women.
Right.
It's a defence mechanism. When a woman asks me that question, I just say them.
You know what?
It navigates me out of it quite nicely.
One of my favourite ever internet videos is that one where she's like, would you want to kiss me or kiss the prettiest woman in the world for $1 million? And he's like, $1 million. And she's like, no, let me just slow the question down. And she keeps asking it. And then she's like, you're supposed to say I'm the prettiest woman. And he's like, but you're not. We could have had $1 million and you're vanity. Like, this is so funny.
Nice. Should we do Brexit then? Oh no, how are we all? Nice weekends, Ava?
Yeah,
good.
great. Yeah,
you well?
thank you. Yeah.
Does the day find you well today?
The day finds me very well.
Good.
Yeah, you?
Very well, yes. Thank you.
I'm trying to think what I did. Oh, I went to Reform on Friday.
Yes,
Oh,
you
yeah.
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we talk about that? Tangentially, I suppose we're going to talk about Brexit.
Yeah, we are going to talk about it.
Okay.
It was very disappointing because we turned up and it was like pouring rain and there were some protesters outside. Got out the cab to obviously speak to the protesters. Started to film them and one woman just absolutely screamed at me.
You?
Really?
Yeah, she was like, who the hell are you? Like, why are you filming? Like, telling me to F off. I was just like...
Do you not know who I am?
I was like, well, do you know what then, pal?
Fuck
Fine.
your protest.
Just continue standing in the rain, like, and don't tell people why you're here. Fine. But which was very
Well,
disappointing.
she's learnt her lesson.
Absolutely.
It's the last day she rues Ava Santina.
I felt bad because one of the other ones DM'd me on Instagram and sent me a really nice message just saying, apologising.
On behalf of the women?
Yeah, she was kind of at odds with the rest of them. Everyone else had like socialist worker placards or like a bit of Extinction Rebellion stuff on them. And then she was just like there with her dog. She was really giving like kind of quite NIMBY energy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, what did you learn at Reform?
Well, I learnt nothing from the protesters.
Well, that's why I asked about Reform.
Oh,
What about the Reform themselves?
Oh, yeah, it was in Kemi Badenoch's constituency, so it was a lot of former Conservative voters. It was a really camp event.
Camp?
Was it?
It was at a wedding venue.
Like a registry office?
Yeah, and it was like there were like really beautiful like white drapes everywhere, and it had like the pale blue Reform lights on it.
Oh.
So it was like, yeah, it was quite nice, quite
Sounds like
pleasant.
a gender reveal.
There were some chandeliers.
It sounds a little bit like, it sounds a bit sort of school American prom in the 80s. Would that be fair to say? Is that the
It
kind of
was quite
aesthetic?
like that, yeah. It was, I guess it got a bit raucous at one point because they had to close the bar and they reopened it after the speeches had finished.
Nice.
How many people were there?
Ooh, how many people would have been there? About 1,000, do you think?
Stop.
1,000 people?
Yeah, I think I've like totally over.
At a Reform disco in Saffron Walden?
Yeah, it's probably about. It was quite a big room.
It was big. It was like 500, closer to 500.
Yeah, probably was closer to 500. But I love lying, so.
Yeah. It wasn't in Saffron Walden. There was no event.
What's that thing about Tim Robinson, from the Tim Robinson show, that bit where he's like Herbie Hancock and he's like, that's why we all love Herbie, he loves to lie. Do you remember that?
I don't.
I think you should leave, never mind.
Sorry.
It's
I've
interesting
got
on
it
Friday
down
night
there.
because I really got the impression that they were a bit tired of doing it.
They're doing it a lot.
They've been on a tour basically of the UK, and then Saffron Walden they're going for because, Farage, when we interviewed him, he was quite clear about it. He was like, "I'm here because Kemi Badenoch accosted me because she claimed that our membership numbers were false, and so now I'm going to put a lot of money into this constituency and I'm going to oust her."
I love the idea of Nigel Farage participating in national politics, not to necessarily win an election, but to settle petty beef. And be like, she accused me of lying, and therefore I am mobilising the Reform Party machinery to specifically unseat her. Fuck you, Kemi.
The momentum of that must be quite difficult to sustain, given they won't get the chance to unseat her for 5 years. So if you're having the Saffron, how often are they going to have the Saffron Walden rally?
Yeah.
I think that every member that they peel off the Conservatives. I mean, if you look at, Harry Cole in the Sun today is reporting that apparently CCHQ are panicking because there's absolutely no money in the coffers, and there was even one little tidbit that was Conservative MPs aren't able to employ staff off of the party's cash.
Jesus.
Yeah, because there simply isn't any cash. No one's donating. So I suppose the argument for them to keep doing these rallies is to get more people donating to the party and kind of fill the bank in a similar way to what Labour were doing for a couple of years before they got into proper election campaign
'cause
mode.
The Tories' sort of big backers have either broken for Labour, and they had quite a few turncoats before the election, or if you're on the other side of the Tory electoral coalition and you're more on the sort of right wing and a bit crazy side, you're like, well, I'll just go for Reform, particularly whilst you're doing this dance where you sort of make yourself a bit like Reform but not quite as full fat as Reform. I'm just going to give Nigel my money instead.
And that, so Kemi Badenoch was quite popular, judging by the responses that we got there. There was, people were quite pro her.
Among Reform voters.
Yeah, but they're not keen on the rest of the party.
Yeah.
The rest of the party to them is flat, and she's the only true bastion of anti-woke.
You have Priti Patel. Remember last week she was like, we were fine in government. Like, immigration it's high, but it's not our fault.
She said that the nearly 1 million people were the brightest and best, didn't she?
Oh, yeah.
That's what she said. And I saw how that landed on X. It's great now, the shift in the X algorithm, because I don't actually have to seek out like right-wing sentiment. I just open X and I see it.
Yeah.
And they weren't happy that she said that. It's probably a good bellwether of your own politics if you view Priti Patel as like a lame centrist or an apologist for mass migration. But yeah, it didn't land well with those characters.
No, End Woke was furious.
Yeah.
Well, their argument, isn't it, that a lot of that migration was people who came in to undercut the British worker and were paid rather cheaply. But what you've got to remember about that is when the national wage was introduced in 1998, it was business leaders who said they didn't want to pay the minimum wage. So really, all of this is the fault of the Conservatives and their friends who simply don't want to pay people a proper living wage and would rather actually import cheap labour. And then when they turn around and go, oh, there's a lot of cheap labour here and not a lot of, quote unquote, naturalised people, they're upset about it.
Nigel kind of, he spoke to you about this, didn't he? Well, he spoke to you about the Conservatives and immigration and Brexit.
Yeah, he did.
Should we have a listen?
Let's go.
Constitutionally, a massive success. The status quo has been reversed. In terms of foreign policy, without doubt, it's been a great success.
With foreign policy?
Oh, we're much taller in the world now than we were. I mean, we couldn't have done the nuclear submarine deal with Australia as a European Union member. We could not have taken the lead on Ukraine as a European Union member because we'd have done a collective joint policy with the French and the Germans and everybody else. In terms of...
US, though?
Sorry?
The US look down on us now, though, because we're not in the EU.
Far from it. No, we're far more important to America. We're far more important around the world than we were. Undoubtedly, they're successes. In terms of science, we're in a much better place. I think the vaccine proved that. We got a vaccine and rolled it out before the rest of Europe. Could not have done that as a European Union member. So there are areas like that. I mean, even Keir Starmer the other day admitted that with tech and AI, we're in a much better place outside the European Union. Big admission from the Prime Minister. But in terms of what were the realistic expectations of people that voted Brexit, to them it's not been a success at all. You know, the key driver of that turnout that was so much higher than anyone predicted was fewer people would come into Britain. And the number's gone through the roof. Now, that's not the fault of Brexit, but it is the fault of a Conservative Party who used Brexit for electoral gain and never really believed in it. So I think for that reason, and I also think in terms of business, I mean, everything from financial services to fisheries. We had the chance to simplify the rule books, to make life easier. We haven't done so. And interestingly, the Conservative Member of Parliament for North West Essex, one Kemi Badenoch, she could, with a stroke of a pen, have got rid of 4,000 EU laws and chose not to.
So that's Nigel Farage there talking about how the Conservatives never actually believed in Brexit. They just used it as a vehicle for electoral success. And it's quite interesting to how he's worked this out, how he's worked this line of attack out. Because originally, if you go back to the 2019 election, he was the Brexit Party and he was standing back in seats so that the Conservatives could win. And that was a way that he could actually solidify his standing in the political arena, because he probably wouldn't have won any seats. And actually, it looks better to say we stood aside than to not win anything.
Very nobly, yeah.
Yeah. And then once you get to the other end of that administration that did fail to deliver any Brexit bonuses, your only natural progression from there is to, well, argue that the people who you did believe at the time and were promoting didn't actually mean anything they said. And you know that because you spent a lot of time with them.
Mm. It's quite strong, isn't it? Or wishful thinking, imaginative. I don't know how to frame it. The problem the Conservatives has is they just didn't believe hard enough in Brexit, and if they did, we would be A-OK right now.
It's appointing yourself as you're the chosen one who can handle it and fix it. Like this magical thing, I know exactly how it works. It's my baby. I know exactly. This kind of like nebulous geopolitical event that like is an event and cannot be defined by any one metric, and I have the keys to unlock it. Don't worry.
Only I believe in it enough to realise its potential.
But one of those key metrics that you could measure it by is GDP, right?
Yes.
Because we were going to become globalists. We were going to trade with everyone.
Singapore on Thames.
It was going to be, yes, we were going to be the country of deregulated free market, whatever, I don't know, whatever shit they said at the time. Kit Malthouse was on Politics Live today, and he dropped a real pearl of wisdom. I cracked that oyster and I found the pearl. We can listen to it here, actually.
Yeah, let's.
On the EU, are you pleased? Are you welcoming Keir Starmer going to Brussels, first meeting of a British Prime Minister there since we left the EU, to get that closer relationship, that reset?
Well, first of all, on your first question, can I just say, I don't think the people who we talk to and why we talk to them should be dictated by the Americans. right? I think if this is the school playground where, sorry, you can't be my best friend because you're talking to him over there, then we're into a kind of adolescent world of geopolitics, which is going to be a disaster for everybody, right? So should we be talking to the Europeans about trade? Absolutely we should, right? We buy a lot of their stuff, they buy a lot of our stuff, so we should make that as easy as possible.
So should there be an alliance, a really close alliance with the EU, because it might be our only protection against an unreliable and unpredictable US president?
Well, there already is a military alliance.
Yeah.
We already have a trade and cooperation agreement, which is meant to be a trade alliance. Obviously, those things are closely linked, the two of them. So, yeah, I mean, if we can sell them more stuff and they can sell us more stuff cheaply and easily and freely without us being part of some massive political organisation, then great, let's do it.
Right. So should we?
So there he says we should talk to our closest trading partner. It makes sense that if we live near people, we should be able to trade freely with them. This guy, you know the pulse? I can't even touch the pulse because Kit Malthouse's massive finger is covering it. He also references later in the programme the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the CPTPP, which you'll know is, well, the Brexit light. It's one of the big bastions of Brexit success. It's going to potentially bring in a 2 billion boost to growth every single year to the United Kingdom. Now, just to put that growth into perspective, Brexit has wiped out 101.4 billion pounds of our GDP every single year.
So that means, hang on, we just need like 50 of those Trans-Pacific partnerships.
Yeah.
And everyone's queuing up
Yeah.
to join forces with us in the global economy.
You just got to charge inheritance tax on like 5 farmers and then we're there.
I wonder if this is what it means to be sort of tuned into British politics now. It's just sort of 15 years on a cycle of we need to leave the EU, we need to leave the EU, we need to leave the EU, we need to leave the EU. I think we should rejoin the EU. I think we should rejoin the EU. I think we should rejoin the EU. I think we should, and it just repeats and repeats ad nauseum until we all die.
Tony Blair, a couple of years ago, said something on the lines of, I don't want to misquote Tony Blair, but he said something on the lines of, sometimes you need to tell the people, you need to just give the people what they need rather than listen to the people. And he was talking about that in terms of Brexit. The argument is so strong of why we should be in a customs arrangement with Europe. I was asked over the weekend, I was doing I think Radio 5 quite late night on a Saturday, and I was asked, is it a Brexit betrayal if we seek a close trading link with the EU? And it's like, well, yeah, it probably is, but I'd rather not be poor. And I think you need to tell people, actually, I don't really care what you think about sovereignty. I actually think that you need to put food on the table, and this is the best way to go about it.
I was listening to Tim Shipman's book about the decline of the Tories. I was doing it while I was ran the farthest I've ever run, to brag about that. Thank you, audience. And they described Brexit as the second secular religion in this country, the NHS being the first, and just the idea of Brexit becoming so sacrosanct, and any sort of violation of that is met with such vitriol. Like people, the discussion around it is still so tense that no one is willing to have a good faith conversation about it, and everyone still, or even 9 years later, is still fingers in their ears, going la 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 la.
So I guess within the context of the two things that you've both just said, do we not think that that's a sort of a fairly held belief? Because for all of Brexit's flaws or merits, the country did vote to do it. And the people that voted for it spent years having to actively say, no, we voted for this thing. And now you, the establishment, the elite, are trying to undermine and stop it, right? Whether it's the second referendum campaign, whether it's the mayhem in Parliament that forced Johnson into proroguing it. And as Ava just said, sort of probably since Thatcher, the most sort of totemic political figure in British politics, just saying sometimes actually you need to give them their vegetables. You need to give the British people their medicine. They don't know what's best for them. silly little person, I, Tony Blair, do, and I'm going to tell you what's best for you, and we're going to do it. If you voted for a thing, it's just, who the fuck are you, Tony Blair? I don't care. I don't care if it knocks 4% off our GDP. I don't care. I voted for this thing. You're going to do it. And I think that is where the fever and the emotion comes from, right? It's like the condescension, the idea that once in a blue moon, you our dear rulers, give us the opportunity to have our say. And we had our say, and you didn't like it, and you spent the last 10 years trying to stop it from happening. Like, I think you can understand why it animates people.
I agree, and I think that 2 points. Christ alive, if you ever bring up some of the points from the Lexit argument, that, like, if you point out that, well, Brussels is actually rather bureaucratic, and actually it does waste a lot of money, and it's really hard to get anything through, people are like, no, la 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 la.
They just sing "Ode to Joy."
The other side of that is a wonderful column written by David Mitchell over the weekend, in which I think he perfectly speaks to the young people who were polled the other week and said that they might prefer some kind of authoritarianism. And he points out that they just basically need to shut up and go away. That sort of condescension. Shall I read it out?
Yeah,
Sorry,
no. Could you do a narration for us?
Could I do a narration?
An oration.
Oration. But yeah, read it aloud.
Just getting it up. Sorry, here it is.
Can you read it in an impression of David Mitchell?
What does he sound like? He's a bit Starmery, isn't he?
I don't think I can do that.
That's all right.
Would you like to give it a go, Ed?
No.
No, actually, I'm fine.
For The Observer, he writes, "Here's a shocking finding, Gen Z. Democracy isn't perfect. According to a new poll, half of our 13 to 27-year-olds can't see the point of all those time-wasting elections and parliaments. Why do they not know that authoritarianism is worse?" Now, I'll kick it off by just saying I would say that speaks to your point. This is why people are angry.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's the arrogance, right, of David Mitchell saying to this younger generation who have lost faith in democracy, rather than seeking to understand why might this younger generation have lost its faith in democracy, and perhaps the reason might be because the organisation of our society is such now that I think we've broken the social contract with the younger generation on the most basic of levels, be that if you work hard, you should be able to get on, you should be able to get a job. One wage should be enough to give yourself some secure housing. 2 wages should be enough to be able to afford to go on a nice holiday and buy a £20 bottle of wine at the weekend. That is not an extraordinary ask, right, for a society. But the way that the economy is organised, the way that wage growth has been stagnant, the way that the economy is filled with inflationary pressure, the way that if anybody wants to get on, they do so with £50,000 of debt tied around their necks, and as a result, stay at home, live at home with their mother and father, preventing them from forming really a meaningful romantic relationship with anyone. And they go, do you know what, actually, fuck this. I don't like the way this society is organised. Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock, David Mitchell. And that you've just said there, none of us are pretending that democracy is perfect. No one thinks that democracy is perfect. I think he quotes Churchill in the piece, right? The worst of the ones we have, but the best one we have, or whatever it is. Like, what? That arrogance and that ignorance, I think, is behind a lot of the political sentiment in this country, right? Whether it's that Gen Z are checking out from democracy, or indeed, like we were saying, the fervour around Brexit.
Can I say I think David Mitchell's not necessarily wrong? I think it is shocking. I think it's right to say that as a shocking statement. I think you're absolutely right as well in your assessment as to why. But I don't think being alarmist about this is incorrect either. I think that is a shocking thing to hear, that the majority of Gen Z are alienated from democracy. I don't necessarily agree with the tone of the column, but I don't think the response of going, Jesus fucking Christ, is wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's written from the perspective of someone, though, who's not in it, who's not experiencing the fallout of all of those factors that Ollie just laid out.
Yeah.
If it was...
I feel like we may have seen some polling of this nature before. This isn't the first time.
No, I think we talked about it quite recently.
Yeah, that maybe when we've discussed it before, it hasn't been a majority, but certainly it's been an increasing and growing trend, right? Whether it's the demographic that shows the highest support for Trump in Britain, and admittedly that is still a minority of people, but it's younger men, that when we ask voters about whether they prefer democracy or, you know, authoritative figures that don't have to consult Parliament or have elections, and there's this growing support base for it. It's a good point you've made, actually, because maybe the first time I saw that stat, I was like, oh, Christ. And then, like anything else, it just kind of grinds you down, and you go, oh, well, it's reached a majority now. Do you know
There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it's just...
There's the majority of people want it, and who am I to say they're wrong? Idiot Tony Blair.
But yeah, I mean, but it's actually the same sentiment as what Tony Blair was saying about Brexit. It is pretty much the same. But then this is why the left lose the argument. This is why the left lost the Brexit referendum, and why the left lost the recent American election, and even the Hillary Clinton one before that. It's because the left is guilty of thinking itself so ideologically and morally pure that it feels it doesn't need to engage in the conversation or the argument. And what David Mitchell has written there is pretty much, look, they're wrong, the kids are wrong, and that's it. There's no point in trying to tackle or unpick why they might feel this way. We're going to leave it at that.
Are you asking too much of David Mitchell? David Mitchell's a comedian. I don't really know what else he could have done.
I think if you're going to speak as if you know what you're talking about, then I'm allowed to criticise you and suggest that perhaps you don't.
No, I think you are absolutely.
But I do take your point that, I mean, it's just going to. Peep Show was already a tough watch.
Wrong.
Stop, Ava. No,
this is harder.
This was painful.
No, I love Peep Show. But it's what? What's happened?
You've been cancelled, apparently.
Oh, no. I love Peep Show.
Right. But it's difficult to watch.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
What I was going to say is his character in it is not particularly likeable, right? That's the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then for him to turn out to be not very likeable in real life as well. That's really frustrating.
Just watch Would I Lie to You. I think. Why am I just sticking up for David Mitchell? I do think the reaction to this column has been quite staggering. As in from like people like, oh, David Mitchell, you idiot fascist. That Mitchell Webb look was bad.
That Mitchell and Webb look was really good, and I loved it.
It was brilliant. That was Fix Men's Mental Health. It's another series.
Yes, big time. But I've realised now, you know, when you're on YouTube and you'll see there'll be a supercut of David Mitchell's best bits on Would I Lie to You or something like that, and it'll have like 10 million views. I understand now where those views come from. From me. Well, partially from you.
Sorry, I just think we should be talking about, like, David Mitchell isn't a political commentator. He's not in charge.
Sure, but you're at a point in time, right? You're at a crossroads where there is a really frightening rise in right toward hard right sentiment amongst young people in this country. You've got all of the economic conditions that are favourable to right-wing politics. I don't think that this sort of commentary is helpful. The conversation should be, okay, people listen to this podcast and they get really annoyed that we cover reform, right? You should be annoyed that reform are growing in popularity. Like, if you just like turn away from it, nothing is going to, it's going to continue down the way, the path in which most of Europe is travelling.
I think in a way it's sort of emblematic, right, in the problem of for sort of centrist liberal politics in this country, which is why can't they see how silly they are, right? And I've thought this recently when when Starmer's been asked about the economy, and he's gone, well, PwC actually says the UK is one of the best places to invest right now, and it's like, that in a sentence is why you are fucked, son, because most people do not think of PwC or what their view on the British economy is as A, relevant, or B, something that they even care about. At most, PwC is the company that's like come into their company when it's been in administration and sacked everyone. That's like their closest affiliation for it, and that sort of reverence for a Big Four-esque company, it doesn't do you any favors, and I think that in a similar way to this is the gap. It's the I think I spoke about it out here the other week. It's like old politics versus new politics, right? It's why can't you see that the IMF has rated us fantastic as a place to invest? humble worker ant, it's
All of those men down on Parliament Square today protesting how their tools were stolen and the Met couldn't do anything about it.
Oh,
Do you know
yeah.
what they're actually saying? They got like £8,000 worth of tools stolen, and then they were shouting out to their wife, like, "Don't worry, darling, the IMF actually says we're the most attractive place to invest."
Growth.
Starmer out there speaking to the tradies, being like, "Well, actually, Pete, did you see PwC's latest report?"
Reeves.
Yeah,
And David Mitchell.
yeah. I mean, the lessons there in America, right? Delivery isn't enough. It doesn't matter.
Do you know like how John Richardson became the darling of Labour during the election?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
For
funny.
Yeah.
some bizarre reason, they were
divorced
like,
thing
"Do you
to
know
do.
what we need to do to win the election? John Richardson should come and watch the football with me." Like,
And Matt Ford as well.
Yeah, but he used to be in the party, didn't he?
Matt Ford did it.
Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah, he used to be. Is he a Miliband advisor? He was
was he?
someone, or maybe he was in the Treasury under
But
Brown.
Matt
He's
Ford
a
is-
former Labour guy.
yeah, he's also very well read on politics. Like he actually is, like he's in the game. Whereas John Richardson, like he literally has been on. This is the crux of it. Just because we've enjoyed you on Would I Lie to You, it does not mean that you can then advise the governing party. Can I just be clear on that?
I don't think he was. I think what it probably was, he did the Margot Robbie bath thing, didn't he, in the election?
Oh, yeah.
It was him
Sorry,
in
I
the
thought we were
bath.
still talking about David Mitchell.
No, I'm talking about John Richardson.
Right,
sorry.
okay.
He did explaining the sort of Tory economic meltdown,
Yes.
like Margot Robbie explained the financial crash, and then instead of like the glass of champagne, he had like a pint of lager or something.
Yep.
And I imagine they just parked him in the pub with Starmer to sort of have more of a reason for the photos to get published, I would imagine. And maybe maybe Starmer put in the call, be like, "I'd love it if John could come and watch one of the England games."
Is that
with me."
like when Oasis went to Downing Street? That's what this Labour Party's thing is. It's John Richardson and Matt Ford.
Or when
watching the
Beyonce sang
football.
at the Obama inauguration.
Yeah,
She won.
yeah.
She won Best Album for the first
She
time.
did.
Last night. Yeah. How do we feel about Beyonce's country album?
Good.
Yeah,
I don't think I've listened to the entirety of it.
I like it as a whole. There isn't like a standout. I wouldn't be like, "Oh, put that on."
What was the single? Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
I
That's
quite
a
like
good
that.
song.
Yeah, I quite like that song.
Beyonce is just good.
Yeah, I think
Popular
that's...
opinion?
We can
Unpopular take. I like Beyonce.
I've seen this polling. Gen Z like Beyonce.
Cuff me.
which of course is one of her songs, isn't it?
Cuffing season,
I don't think it's called that.
isn't
but
it?
What's the, I don't know what song we're talking about.
Yeah.
Cuff
Cuff
it.
it.
Cuff
Yeah,
it.
How does
cuff
that
it.
go? I actually don't know how that goes.
Well, I'm not going to sing it.
Oh,
Like,
I think
would
you should.
I think you should.
I'd like someone to
Sean?
sing it.
It's cuff it, cuff it, cuff it, cuff it, baby.
Oh, it is, yeah.
I've never heard that before in my life. But maybe I just don't recognise it because it was done in such a unique way.
You know what he's done with that cover there? He's
That was
really made it his
beautiful.
own.
Barely
I'm watching
recognisable.
Bob's Burgers.
I
Like,
think I'm falling in love. Tonight I'm fucking something up.
yeah.
You get
Sorry.
it if I sang that, you recognise what.
Well, I knew exactly what
Yeah.
you were doing.
No, excuse me. Pardon my ignorance.
Of course, your girl, she won last night.
Chapel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Early investor.
Chappelle.
Dave Chappelle wrote.
Chapel. Yeah.
What
What did she win? Best
best
newcomer or something.
song? Best single?
Don't know, but
Best dance move?
We quite really she won best newcomer because she has been knocking about for a while.
Oh no, but her
Yeah.
her
She
rise
was
last year
stratospheric,
was
yeah.
stratospheric.
She was given a go at it for a while.
I thought that since Trump got elected, that would spell the end for spelling dance moves. But Chapel Roan's bringing it back in a big way.
You thought it was going to finish off the
Wow.
YMCA?
Yeah, I thought the YMCA was done.
No, I think YMCA is bigger than Trump's embrace of it.
I don't know, man.
I think it's no, but like in the same way that
I wanna-
Elon trying to embrace the Hitler salute, the Hitler salute's legacy is much bigger than Elon trying to like repurpose it.
Do you think?
the YMCA is much bigger
I will-
than Trump trying to repurpose
Calvin
it?
Robinson, of course,
Oh yeah,
sacked as
fuck me,
priest.
holy shit!
Defrocked.
Well, he's defrocked because you can't be excommunicated from a church that is a business. The write up in the American Twitter, which was like, he's been excommunicated from the Church of England. Can I just be clear? He was never in the Church of England. They wouldn't let him in there, and I don't know if you've just seen, but the Archbishop of Canterbury just had to step down. Broadly speaking, there are nonces in the Church of England, and they wouldn't let Calvin Robinson in there. Can I say that? I'm just saying that's
think
where
about
the
that
bar
one.
is.
Yeah.
The bar is
Famously,
so low.
your lot fond of some child abuse as well. So let's be
I-
fair.
Can we talk about
I'm
Conclave?
I've spoken about that many
What
times.
the film?
Have you seen it?
No, apparently it's really good though.
Can I spoil it for you?
Okay.
I don't
They
know.
they choose a new pope.
Oh no! This is the twist. This is the
I don't think
twist.
this is going to go down well for you because it's going to look like you're on your trans-maxing hike again.
It turns out, just the new pope, the guy they choose, just at the end, there's like, oh, I'm intersex, by the way.
Is that the ending line? That's the closing line?
No, there's about 2 minutes afterwards. But it's like,
Did they decide he can still be Pope?
yeah, only one of the cardinals knows, and I think he doesn't say anything.
Oh, that's the problem with all of this lot, aren't they? Because they just
But I don't think that stops you being pope.
everything.
I don't think it should.
Well, you can't be a woman, can you? So it depends how you define a woman.
That'd
God.
be quite funny if they were like trans and intersex, absolutely fine.
Well, that's the
Women,
lesson of this film,
no,
I guess.
no women.
Can you imagine if the discourse becomes J.K. Rowling on like the Pope and like who can and can't be the Pope?
It was surprising. I thought it was a great film, and I was just surprised by the ending.
But I feel like I don't like an ending like that.
But it wasn't like,
It's like, oh, it was all a dream. Great. So
and the Pope was intersex.
Yeah, the last 2 hours
that's-
were completely meaningless.
That's my inception.
Yeah.
Like my totem thing is if the Pope's intersex, then I know I'm dreaming.
Have you seen Baby Girl yet?
No.
No.
But listen to
to
that
see
song
that.
though.
I just keep thinking about this guy's tweet who was like he watched it in the cinema and like during like a very intense sex scene that's like gone quite viral.
It's Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's doing one of the podcast's favorite activities. I think she's being fingered. And anyway, there's this guy who was like, would have enjoyed the cinematography a lot more had there not been like a children's movie playing next door that you could hear very
Holy
loud
shit.
through
Oh my god.
through the wall. Yeah.
Oof.
I would have enjoyed the cinematography of the fingering scene more.
Yeah.
What a sentence.
Of course, all of my mates from the Catholic Church, no problem.
Fucking hell.
See, when we're talking about Calvin Robinson there,
Yeah.
outside
The
NatCon,
Vatican showing of that must have. Sorry.
the outside NatCon or PopCon, I asked someone, I was like, do you want to speak to us? And it was quite difficult the best of times to get people to talk to you at those events. And some guy went, absolutely not after what you did to my friend. And I was like, who's your friend? He's like, Calvin Robinson.
What did
And I
we
was-
do to his
I
friend?
think Ollie interviewed him.
Yeah.
Quite like a good faith interview,
What
as far
did
as
we
I
do to
remember.
him?
He and
He was protesting outside that drag that
Lawrence
drag-
Fox and about 2 other people decided to picket a drag story time.
Oh, down in South East London, wasn't it?
In
Honor Oak.
Honor Oak, yeah, Honor Oak, East Dulwich, sort of borderlands. And I went and reported on it
Yeah.
and interviewed him and Lawrence. And I think they didn't like the fact that I didn't give them very long in the edit to explain why they were there. I
Well, 'cause
imagine.
it's loser behaviour.
Yeah, I mean, there were 3 of them there, and then about 200 people sort of counter-protesting,
Oh.
being like, fuck off.
On a weekday.
Yeah. And and that was it, wasn't it?
It was
There
a
wasn't
weekend,
actually.
wasn't it? I feel
No, it's
like-
like a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
it really?
It was real like.
And, well, I think it was lockdown-ish.
No,
There were a lot of
no,
people
we were
working from
well out of
home.
lockdown.
People working from home.
No, this was like
I don't think
22.
Oh, okay.
Still a bit COVID-y in 2022,
Yeah,
weren't
no,
we?
I think we were, honestly, because...
No, we weren't at all.
Sorry.
Who is that talking back there? Sorry.
No,
Spends 2 weeks in India, comes back.
Not Sean. No, we had no more restrictions after 2021. There was
But
nothing
was it
COVID
not
about it.
End of 2021, was there a lockdown of some description?
No, that was end of 2020. Third lockdown finished in like April of 2021.
This is basically ancient history at this point.
Yeah.
It's mad. I've expunged most of this from my memory.
Anyway, I don't think they care about that, but get back to the... So why were they there?
Oh, they were picketing a drag story time, and then it turned out that the drag story time just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
And that's what they were angry about, what you did. What they
Well,
just-
I guess so.
Well, because I did a piece that was like this this is the sort of inanity of the culture war in a nutshell. There are
Right.
these sort of 3 right-wing figures with media profiles versus 200 people in the street screaming at each other about a drag story time that, according to the pub, was never scheduled to take place. It's like, bold men fighting over a comb.
Mm-hmm.
And so I imagine they didn't like that because obviously I was saying that they were silly.
They know that there is choice. You don't have to take your children to drag story time, if there had been one scheduled.
The video they were sharing, being like, "This is disgusting," was a horrendously, obviously fake edit of some guy presumably dancing in a gay bar or somewhere in a pair of hot pants, but it had been sort of crudely green screened into an audience of children, so it looked like he was doing it in front of kids. But my 90-year-old grandmother would look at me like, that's been edited. What, you know? But that's what they were sharing, being like, this is disgusting. They're defiling our children. We have to protect the innocence of children. And then you go, and I interviewed someone there who'd taken one of their kids to a drag story time in the past, and she was like, yeah, it's lovely. There's just my baby likes the drag queen's makeup and glitter, and she reads them a story, and then me and my friends have a coffee afterwards.
It's like going to see, you know when people book like Disney princesses for birthday parties, or a clown, or something.
He's a man! He's not a clown! That's a man! That's a man in makeup!
Take that balloon animal away from my child! I see through your sick games, Bonzo! I bet your feet aren't that size! I will not smell that flower. You fucking pervert.
Well, yeah,
They never
exactly.
complain when they have like hot men reading, or hot women for that matter, reading bedtime stories on CBeebies.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know the entire
yeah.
premise of that. I'm going to shatter the illusion. The
for the
entire premise of that is, yeah, the mums and the dads. It's something for them to enjoy while the baby enjoys the story. That's sort of how it works.
I've seen Tom Hardy do it. Has there been...
There's been hot
Harry
guys do
Styles
it.
has done it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Anyone for the straight dads? Won't somebody think of the straight dads, please?
Any totty?
At kids' bedtime story.
I couldn't possibly spend this time with my child.
Where is Sweeney?
no, I was.
Where is Sydney Sweeney?
I was about to say you wouldn't enjoy Sydney Sweeney because of your.
Her eyes are too close together.
Their points of view. I was watching CBeebies bedtime story with my daughter, and I was outraged that there was not a babe for me to enjoy.
No, but
Ringing up Babe Station to ask them to read out a bedtime
shit.
story.
Oh my god. That's so fun.
Oh, good stuff. Fuck. Do we think there's any
Your clown bit is really good.
That was good.
Thank you, I was pleased with that.
That was good.
It felt good at the time.
Yeah. Was that good for you?
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I'm glad it was good for you.
Felt it was in a groove.
Speaking of clowns,
David Mitchell's column once again.
well, I was actually going to play Chris Philp on BBC
There you
4's
go.
Political Thinking
There
with
you
Nick
go.
Robinson.
Go on. Play the clip, Ava.
Here we go. Roll it.
Do you think that sort of belief in hard work is something that's missing in Britain today?
I do a bit. There are 9 million working age adults who are not working. And as we compete globally with countries like, South Korea, China, India, we need a work ethic. We need everybody to be making a contribution. We are in, as George Osborne said years ago, we are in a global race. And that means we've got to be competitive. And it means we've got to work hard. And I think as a country, we need to lift our game. We need to up our game.
All right. So what I love about Chris Philp in this clip.
He's a bit of totty, I think.
Yeah.
Handsome man?
I think it's handsome.
Handsome?
I wouldn't comment on that.
No, you would never, obviously.
I wouldn't.
No.
I only talk about like people's personalities.
Was that God? Was that God that lowered that microphone?
And we're not interested in what you have to say about their personalities.
This is a beauty pageant. Okay, sweetheart, that's enough.
You love it if the gallery had like a button they could press. Just one of our mics. That's enough of that, Ed.
Okay, so you'll recall that Dominic Raab and a couple of others penned this book a few years ago where they called British workers,
Britannia Unchained?
yes,
Yeah.
some of the laziest in the world. And it went down so well that Chris Philp decided to re-up that. I just thought this little nugget from him was fascinating because we had on a guy from the 4-Day Week Foundation the other week, and he was talking about productivity and about how since like the 80s, productivity has stagnated. Right? We've been just as productive as we were back then. And you're both looking at your watches.
I'm just checking the time.
I was looking at my eczema. Sorry.
How ableist of
The
you.
point being, with all of the technological advancements that we've had over the past 20 years, we should not be working as hard as we were in the 80s.
Yeah.
But Chris Philps' interpretation of that is we need to get the whips back out. We need them back in the workhouses. We need them firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, we had... I interviewed your man Muldoon the other day about AI.
For the listener, Ava just like exaggeratedly looked at her watch.
I don't think she even has a watch on, which makes it all the more damning as well. And he made a very similar point in the context of AI, which was that every single sort of innovation technological in the workplace has never been to the benefit of the worker. It is to the benefit of the bottom line and therefore the bosses. AI is rolled out, for example, in an Amazon warehouse to find efficiencies and slackers, people who aren't working hard enough so they can be replaced, and et cetera, et cetera. And he was basically saying, the extra efficiencies found using that AI software in Amazon warehouses, the warehouse workers do not spend the extra half hour they've gained at the end of the day writing poetry. They just work an extra half an hour, and the company makes
piss in a bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, quite. Yeah. I think the delivery drivers piss in the bottles and throw them outside. And then when you were up there, you were interviewing them when they were trying to unionise up in Coventry, and a lot of them don't take toilet breaks because the warehouses are so big. The time lost to get to the toilet is basically renders it inefficient for them, so they don't bother.
But thinking of productivity, they could just put a couple more toilets in.
They could. I tell you what, I've been reading a fantastic book about Amazon recently, The Everything War, by Dana Mattioli, and it talks about their business practices recently. It's insane. The way Amazon functions as a monopoly, whether it's just crushing its competitors. There's all sorts of stories about sort of them meeting people that had insane technological advances, whether it's sort of voice assistant speakers, and then magically Alexa appears on the market 9 months later. There was this company called diapers.com.
What do they sell?
Funny you should ask, Ed. And Amazon wanted mums. Because what they found is when sort of a mother becomes a mother and begins sort of a purchasing journey, she largely stays with that company. So the thinking was, if you get them to buy their baby supplies, they'll then buy everything else from Amazon afterwards. And they basically threw money at selling diapers. They were at one point selling a box of diapers at a $12 loss for every box they sold. And they were subsidising this with cash they made from other parts of their businesses. And one of the big problems from an antitrust perspective is that essentially the bricks and mortar retailers that they're competing with don't have, for example, a ginormous cloud computing service in Amazon Web Services, AWS, that can essentially subsidise, for example, cutting the price on goods, etc. So they get buried. And they also negotiated. Amazon were trying to buy diapers.com. Diapers.com didn't want to sell to them. And so they essentially began just shoveling diapers out the door at a cut price so that diapers couldn't compete, would fold, and then they would then corner the market. And there's tons and tons of stories exactly like that. It's well worth your time. The Everything War. I'd really recommend it if you want to learn about sort of... We talk about these companies, big tech, techno-feudalism, as Yanis Varoufakis has called it in the studio. And then when it's sort of put down in front of you, their actual business practices, it's insane. It's insane.
To go back to Chris Philps' point,
yes,
about people don't work in this country, but it's like 9 million economically inactive people in this country. So a large proportion of them will be carers. A large proportion will be people who don't need to work necessarily. But then for the people who are economically inactive in that they're not seeking to work, I think it's about 800,000 like Gen Z people who are economically inactive. Charlotte Ivers was writing in the Sunday Times that basically there's no incentive. What is the incentive to work hard? As you mentioned earlier, like the social contract of going to university and getting a grad job, the benefits from that are nowhere near good enough anymore. The average salary of a grad job is 1.6 times the minimum wage. It was previously 2.5 times that. So what is the point in working hard?
Yeah, for sure.
And we're going to go really broad strokes here, but even like the tax system of like, it de-incentivizes people to work hard when they know that if they earn a couple of grand more, they're going to be flipped over into the 40% tax bracket. That is pointless. The tax brackets in this as a whole in this country is so archaic, and it's so skewed to the super wealthy, because the super wealthy are not paying any tax, but people who are actually going to work every day are paying all of it.
There's also the incentive to leave as well. Because if you go and pay no tax in Dubai, it's actually maybe it speaks to what David Mitchell's writing about. And that's the trade-off, right? Is like there is no
Don't
democracy.
cover for him.
I don't think I was. I think I was previously, for sure. I was. But I think
I was kissing his ass before, but not now. Not now.
But the people go to
I love it,
Dubai
Mum, would I lie
or
to you?
like other or other like of the Emirates where there is no democracy, incredibly punitive social laws, and they pay no tax and they're happy because the weather's good and they've got tons of money.
Every time we talk about Dubai, everyone always negates to mention how the entire service industry there is migrant workers who are paid absolutely nothing.
Indentured
And it's
labour,
like
And there's tons of slaves.
You
there as
weren't
well,
doing this
actual
here, by
slaves.
the way.
No,
Sorry, but yeah.
no.
Ed, you've neglected to mention the slavery again. Don't think I haven't noticed.
I'm the Dubai apologist.
It's always like, it's just so incredible how there's no tax and no crime, and you don't have to pay people to serve you very much.
And there's all these people who queue by the side of the road
Yeah.
and follow skyscrapers.
But I love the no crime argument as well. It's like, there's absolutely no crime. By the way, if you are drunk in a public place, they might chop your hand off.
Yeah. Something we should think about here.
Being drunk and losing your hands. Why? Because then you can drink less.
I think you learn a lesson. You can hold fewer pints.
Talk about biting the hand that feeds you.
Oh,
am I right?
very
Ooh,
good.
Yeah.
Do you want to do some tariff chat? We've got
Tariffs.
Time for tariff
Oh,
chat.
well, if we're going to do that, we've got to play another absolute blinder by Kit Mulhouse on Politics Live today. The man did a politics and economics degree at Newcastle University. He was a minister for years, right? But today was a big learning day for him. He was learning, he was discovering today. Just roll the clip.
Can we avoid US tariffs?
Well, Donald Trump is a businessman, right? And he's incredibly transactional. So maybe the first call to Starmer was because he thinks he's going to be a pushover. The idea that they're going to leave us free of tariffs in exchange for nothing is ridiculous. He obviously thinks there's some kind of deal to be done there. And I think to an extent with Canada and Mexico, that's what he's trying to promote as well. But he seems to be operating under the misapprehension that it's exporters who pay tariffs and not importers. So it'll be American companies who are importing all these goods from around the world who will be paying the tariffs, not us.
So that's Kit Malthouse there. And, explaining that Trump might have actually got it wrong with this tariff stuff. Because if he puts a tariff on Britain or the EU, it's not us that pays the tariff. Oh, no. It's Americans that pay the tariff. Now, for anyone who did economics A-level or politics A-level, you might deduce, well, yeah, we do that because that means it disincentivizes them from buying British or EU products, thereby, squeezing those countries and making them panic a little bit, but not Kit Malthouse. Oh, no. Trump's just simply got it wrong. He's got it the wrong way round. If he wants to punish the EU, he should put the tariff on American goods.
What?
That's what I'm saying. It's so stupid. It doesn't make sense.
You know what?
Obviously, Kit. Obviously, the tariff goes on EU goods.
What dreadful advert for Newcastle University, I must say.
Fucking hell.
I'm just saying, it was really funny that you specified where he got his degree. Obviously, like his ministerial experience is probably a lot more relevant than his undergraduate degree.
Yeah, I think he was he Secretary to the Treasury when they were in government, I think. Yeah.
Just been like,
It's funny. It's
No,
well, at
housing,
least
housing, oh boy. And crime and policing.
he was the crime minister for a period of time, wasn't he?
Prime Minister. Well, you know what's a crime? You know what is a crime?
What, Ava?
Not knowing how import tariffs work.
I think I actually respect it from him because
Malthouse or Trump?
Malthouse.
Right.
I kind of respect the Trump thing as well, to be fair. But specifically with Malthouse, where most of the Brexiteers wanted to leave the EU because they viewed it as excessively protectionist, right? That you create this free trading bloc within the borders of the EU, but then you impose punitive tariffs on anyone who wants to sell, for example, wheat into the European Union in order to support your own farmers. And there are plenty of people who supported Brexit who are now cheerleading for Trump imposing his tariffs in this fashion. And I find it quite telling, perhaps, that their love or their hatred of tariffs depends quite clearly on the politics of the people that are enacting them. That's my sort of point for one. And then the second is whether or not it changes or how we believe it sort of impacts the UK's position outside of the European Union in this context. Because Trump yesterday, I mean, it's hard to understand what he's saying, full stop. But he kind of said the UK, we do have some issues with the UK, but I think we'll sort them out. Yeah, the UK's out of line, but I think we'll sort it out. It's not as bad as with the EU.
He thinks it can be worked out. Starmer and I are getting on very well.
Yeah.
He's a really great guy.
Yeah.
The UK's out of line because we don't want their unvaccinated meat.
Well, we don't want their meat and we don't want their cars. But, I mean, why would somewhere like, I don't know, Germany, for example, you know, the home of like Mercedes and BMW, why do they not want a Chrysler car? How many children could you take out with one of their Escalades or whatever they're called?
We are actually, you know, we're one of the only countries that doesn't have a significant tariffs regime for Chinese electric vehicles.
We're one of the only ones who don't.
Yeah, the EU has pretty strong ones. The America obviously now has even stronger ones with that flat 10% on all Chinese goods. We're one of the only places where the Chinese EV manufacturers can sell to unhindered.
Unhindered.
Yeah.
Coming through the free
Uninhibited.
ports, are they? Well, also, they would actually be able to, some of the manufacturers will be able to say that parts and products are British made because they just bring things in through the free port, create it here, and then export it again. Free, by the way. No tax.
Your man Quinn Slobodian.
Yeah.
He's got a new book out as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, it looks good.
High X Bastards, I think. Yeah.
Oh, you're going to interview him again?
Slowden.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Can we call him an economist?
No, I feel he was very clear he's not an economist.
No.
Yeah.
Makes
Makes me less keen.
Not interested. He's a cool guy, though. I liked him. I enjoyed that book.
Yeah.
That's
Special Economic Zones?
What's the name of that book? Crack Up Capitalism by
Yes.
Quinn Slobodian. That's another recommendation from me. Eva, do you have any books to recommend?
No.
I can't read.
My reading list is private.
It's private.
I'm not out and out with you like you with all your fairy books.
What is there's a fairy book at the moment, Ed, that everyone's reading. It's like,
Rebecca Yarros.
It's like it's filth.
And there's two.
It's 50 Shades, but with fairies.
Did I see
There's two.
your girlfriend was reading that?
The Rebecca Yarros one, yeah.
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 What's it called?
It's Onyx Storm.
Begins with an A, does it?
So Akatar is.
Yes.
No, we've talked about that before. That's the first one.
Not horny?
No, extremely hot. No, really like.
Okay.
But there's just a trend in fairy books, and they can't get enough. It's turning all these authors into gazillionaires.
Just being horny fairies?
Yeah, I read part of it, and I was like actually quite stunned by how filthy it was. It's like
You check up on what your woman's reading.
absolutely. I said, let me check. Not that page. That's unrealistic. But it's really funny because it's like, oh, this fucking like, he put his dick in me and then his wings went nuts or something like that.
Really?
Because they're not human. Or he's he's a beast. I've not read them, so if you're an Akatar
Wings
fan,
went nuts.
how much
He's got a real way with words, has Ed Campbell.
see our massively male audience? How many of them do you think have read Akatar? I'm gonna say not many. But if you are someone who has, correct me. I think the man is a beast. I think that's his.
The
not
man
a
is a
pedo.
beast.
He's not a pedo. But
Well, because some women have a thing about Beauty and the Beast, don't they?
I think it's that. I think it must be that sort of thing.
There's always like a joke that like Belle looks really disappointed when he transforms into a human.
Yeah,
That she was more into the beast mode.
the original furry.
The original furry, exactly.
I think we should keep bestiality illegal.
Yeah?
Yeah, 100%.
What
Unlike
would you say?
Mr. Hands over there.
52% of the
Controversial
country
take.
wanted to have sex with their dog and voted for it.
Well, then Tony Blair needs to get off his high horse and give the people what they want.
That is so
Doggy.
funny. That's so funny, isn't it? I suppose that is...
Men must read it.
Men must read what? The fairy stuff?
Yeah.
But I think it's marketed to a female audience.
Most fiction
Why?
I
Is the
think.
book pink?
One of them is. They're all like nice kind of block colours. They look nice. It's
They
good.
have to, man book, blue.
Man book. Man book has big photo
Girl
of
book pink.
girl book pink. Yes. Man book written.
No, I do.
In blood.
I genuinely, one of my mates
Never
is
seen a
an
pink
author.
Bible.
That's true. Makes you think.
Yeah.
One of my mates is an author, and he has like the market insights, and generally obviously we're speaking on generalizations, but the trend is that sort of women read fiction and men read non-fiction.
Is that about his book, or is that
just in general?
in general?
Yeah, general consumer trends. Yeah.
My friend works in publishing, and they told me that, you know, in bookshops when they have like sections that are like diverse authors or whatever, like books written by people of color,
Right.
about like from like the global south, that only seemingly really appeals to white people. Like people of color don't buy it from those because they find they're like it's about like trends in reading, where like if you're not white, you're more likely to use a library rather than like buy a book or whatever. Versus like it's to make white people feel good about reading. Is it like, well, not white author.
What, just like a man hanging around like the global south area of Waterstones?
Yeah.
Waiting for someone to notice him.
I got a book this weekend, and Ava always comments on books that I read. It's very funny. I was reading that book.
You need to stop reading fairy porn in public.
I'm not reading fairy porn. I'm reading about the French Revolution. But there was one. But I was reading.
Fairies at the French Revolution.
Do you remember reading? I can't remember the name of it, but that massive book about. And you were like
Hilary Mantel.
Yes, it was like, who were you trying to impress or something like that. But I bought a book. I was in a bookshop, and it was called Electric Dreams, like the failure of capitalism and sex robots or something like that. And I was like, oh, it was mildly interesting. It's not very good. No offense to the author, who I'm sure is listening. But I was like, I was reading it in a cafe, and I was like, Ava would be like, if Ava saw me doing this, she would be. I think
What cafe were you in? Oh no, you can't.
No, it was in Kensington, so it's fine. I don't live in Kensington. But I think you would
there's
humdrum and quartered.
There's someone out there like knocking off where you did and didn't.
Yeah, because by a process of elimination, they'll get there eventually.
Yeah, West Kensington.
What was your coffee order?
Oat cappuccino. I think I had a cookie as well.
Is that? I'm trying to decide. No. If you wanted to be,
I can picture it now.
you need to have like a macchiato. I think if you were going to be, or like like a real short espresso. If you're going to be.
Did you have a scarf?
Did I? No, I'm going to have to borrow Ava's because I'm going to read it after work.
Oh! More on the scarf. Go on.
It's a nice scarf.
We didn't mention the fourth person on the podcast. The scarf.
It's been silent throughout the
Can
entire record.
Can that be in the thumbnail? A split. 3 of us plus the scarf.
What did you say about my scarf? It's because I said I was going to a play tonight, and you said, "Is that why you're wearing that scarf?"
I thought it was just a classic bit of banter.
I'm not going to the theatre though. The play is in a pub. It's a lock-in in the pub, and it's a one-man show.
Just a drunk landlord subjecting people.
It's about it's like quite a famous play, but they don't do it very often, and they only do it specifically in this pub.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Great. That sounds cool.
Yeah, you would not believe how much the tickets were. I actually I bought them and then I went, well, guess he's buying everything else.
One landlord's one-man play of Othello.
Huh?
A white landlord to do Othello by himself. Shouldn't do that. That'd be bad if you went to see that.
One white man doing 12 Years a Slave.
Jesus.
I'm flipping it around. I'm making you think. I'm thinking.
Right. We done?
I don't think we missed out one of the clips.
I'm sure it's fine.
Well.
Laura, actually, I think we'll get into it more later in the week, but Laura had she did a Vox on Saturday. She went down to the Antifa, she went down to the Resistance.
La Resistance.
Of Stephen Yaxley Lennon. Free him, obviously, but leave Tommy in there. Stephen, great guy.
Tommy's
though,
all the bad parts.
you seen Jekyll and Hyde? It's like that. Anyway, what was I going to say? Oh yeah,
Laura's made a piece.
She's got this great clip of a young guy who's talking about how when he joined the gym, he was like being confronted by people trying to make him join. Well, I'm explaining it terribly. He was
talking about the need for people with left-wing politics and leftists to organise in possibly traditionally masculine spaces, because if they don't, the far right will fill those voids.
Thank you.
I haven't even seen the clip.
No.
I figured it out.
Thank you. Well, I gave so many clues.
You did, to be fair. I look forward to it. Maybe there's a special episode. Maybe Laura comes on.
Maybe.
I'd like that.
And then you can just explain it for her.
You stop talking. What? That's not fair.
If you're listening to this, you won't know, but what Ollie actually did was point a gun at my head.
What the hell? Where did you get that gun from? Do you have that on you all the time?
Musket.
Holy shit.
I actually eat all of the animal.
Right. Always a pleasure, never a chore.
Yeah, that was fun.
Enjoy it?
Feel free to go on the subreddit and let me know who else I'm fucking. That
Let's
would be
not
great.
Yeah.
Seeing as you seem to love to do that.
I don't think it's good to goad them.
I'm not goading them.
I know.
I'm pointing out that that's an extremely weird thing to do.
Oh, no, it's absolutely weird.
Yeah. But please let me know, 'cause it's news to me.
Sometimes I think, though, like the Queen, like never apologise, never explain. And if you just ignore these people, might be a better way of doing it.
Well, it's not happening to you, is it?
No, that's very true. You can deal with it how you wish.
Listeners, go on the Reddit and speculate about Ollie Dugmore. And let's see if he still wants to act like the Queen.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah?
Cut that out if you like. I
No,
don't
that's
mind.
all right. It's fine. Absolute pleasure. See you on Wednesday.
Or tomorrow? No, Wednesday.
Wednesday.
All Wednesday.
Wednesday. Good job, Wednesday. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.